guys, Absolute Duelist here, coming at you with another One Piece video. And in today's One Piece video, guys, we are going to be doing a tier list of the best leaders going into OP04, giving you guys my thoughts and opinions on what the best leaders going to be, what the worst leaders are going to be, where decks are going to stand, talking about the new cards as well coming out into the game, and just how they make each leader better or worse. So without further ado, guys, we're going to get into this, talk about how the game is going to shift, because OP04 is less than 2 weeks away, guys, and we're going to have fun talking about this. So without further ado, let's get into the OP04 tier list. So starting off, guys, we have Doflamingo, Blue Doflamingo. Now, in all honesty, guys, Blue Doflamingo is one of those decks that everybody can agree with is still pretty good. And it even gets a boost thanks to Gum Gum Red Rock, a new event that can go ahead and pay 6 cost to go ahead and return any character to the bottom of the deck. So your opponent has a 10 cost, it's gone. Your opponent has a 4 cost, it's gone. Your opponent has anything that's a problem to you or can't be KO'd, it's gone. And it also has access to 3,000 worlds, which is the same thing as well. So it gets a boost with stuff like that, but it also has the additional bonus of being able to play characters for free from the top of its deck, such as Doflamingo himself, Gecko Moria, Boa Hancock. So it has a lot of decent cards that can play. So I think it's an easy place for Doflamingo. Like, he's always been a pretty good leader, and I think he'll still continue to be a good leader going forward. So we're going to put him in B tier. I think he's a solid B tier choice. Maybe not the top of B tier at the end of this list, but he's still a really good leader, just being able to play characters for free and having access into the best removal in the game with Red Rock and 3,000 worlds. So literally great card in my personal opinion, great deck still. Next we have, oh my god, it's Blurple Croc. Now, Blurple Croc is actually a deck that gets a lot of new support in this set. Now, Kingdoms of Intrigue actually has a lot of new Baroque cards, and they're all purple cards, so they fit the theme of Blurple Croc perfectly. Being able to play stuff like the New Missile Sunday to ramp and draw cards, being able to go ahead and play stuff like Bon Clay to go ahead and match characters' power, this deck gets a lot of new cards and has even access into the new 8-drop Croc that can go ahead and just gain a life and draw you cards as well, cycling your deck. So honestly, I think Blurple Croc is going to be really good, and it also has access into all the good blue removal as well, and the ability to recycle stuff like 3,000 worlds and Red Rock with the blocker Miss All Sunday. So it has access into stuff like that and gets the blue Doflamingo stacking ability and the Perona stacking ability too, which I think is just great, and even has access to the Miss Valentine to go ahead and search for Baroque Works cards. So in my opinion, I think this is at the top of B tier right now. Like, this deck is, yes, not the best deck, but it's got good consistency, having a good leader ability that says it can just draw a card if you have 4 or less cards in your hand and you activate an event. It's got great playability with all the new cards coming from Kingdom of Intrigue, and also it has the ability to recycle Red Rock and 3,000 worlds with Miss All Sunday blocker. So I have to give this deck an easy B tier in my personal opinion. So yeah, it's in the B tier for me right now. Next, we have Odin. I'm not gonna lie, Odin is still a bad deck. I would not rate this deck right now. I've seen it do some things in local tournaments, like online and stuff, but let's be honest, guys, Odin isn't great. Like, yeah, it can go ahead and restand Don, but I don't think it's higher than F tier right now. I can't rate this card, can't rate this deck right now. At least not yet. I think Kanemon's just a better leader overall. Next, we have Green Black Isho. Now, Green Black Isho is actually a really interesting leader just because this is a dual color leader with 2 abilities. This deck has the ability to decrease all your opponent's characters' costs by 1 while it has 1 Dom on it, and can also go ahead at the end of the turn, pay 1 Dom to restand a character of 5 or less. So I think this is actually going to be a pretty interesting deck. I don't think it's going to be super meta or super consistent because yeah, it's a decent deck, but there are just better decks in the game right now. And yeah, it has access to all the navy cards and has access to the green colors, so you can play stuff like Don Krieg, Bellamy, you can play X-Drake, which is a navy card that you can search off of Bluno or Branu, sorry. Like, you have a lot of different things that you can incorporate with Isho, and you can even have access to like the law blocker to compulse Kobe and then play Kobe again to get additional pops. Like, it has a lot of ability and a lot of combo ability, but in my personal opinion, I don't really think this deck's going to be absolutely insane. So I'm going to give it a fair C tier, I think. I think C is a fair place to put this deck, just because, yeah, it's cool and all, but it's not a deck that I think is going to be absolutely insane or absolutely powerful. I feel like it's just going to be one of those decks that will sit there for a bit and then just we'll see what happens with it, right? So C tier for Isho. Next we have Blurple Kaido. Okay, Blurple Kaido is actually a really good deck coming up in this format. Now, do I think it's going to be absolutely insane? No, because of, yes, we get the new Animal Kingdom Pirate cards, which are all blue, such as Who's Who, being able to search like Onigashima, 10-drop Kaido, 9-drop Kaido, you can search King and stuff now. But I don't think this deck is going to be absolutely insane. Maybe going into ST10 when we get the new Kid and stuff, where you can just go ahead and increase it and get all the new good purple stuff. This deck could be potentially really strong. And yes, it has access into blue cards as well, but honestly, I don't see this deck being absolutely insane. I think it'll be cool, but I don't see it being a strong deck. So I think I'm going to be honest and put this in C tier as well for now. I think it will get better as time goes on, but right now I think it's a justifiable C tier. Next we have Purple Shanks. I'm going to put this in F tier. We don't need to talk about it. Film deck is not good unless you're playing a film kid deck right now. So, and in OP04 there is another film deck that we'll get onto later, but Film Shanks ain't good. Next we have King, another F tier. This deck doesn't get good until like OP04, so, well, OP05, sorry. So I think this is an easy F tier. Like, it's not something we need to worry about. Next, Black Sakazuki. Let's be honest, it's another F tier. It doesn't deserve to be anywhere higher than F. Like, it's not good, it's never been good, and never will be good. Next, though, we have an actual, one of the best decks right now, Trafalgar D Water Law. Now, this is actually a leader that I am sad to say gets so much worse with the upcoming format. Because this deck right now is one of the best decks in the game. Being able to just combo out tons of one-drop characters, get tons of searches, and just be able to play the game infinitely is really good. But because of new decks coming out, such as Rebecca, that has the ability to kill tons of one-drops, and just decks getting more removal and everything along those lines, I don't think Law will be higher than B, like, honestly. Like, I think it's still a decent deck. I don't think it dies instantly, but I'm gonna have to put Trafalgar Law in B tier, and it really does hurt to see it go to B tier for me. It's going to the top of B tier. It's not below Croc in any way, but honestly, it's just like, I can't deny the fact that killing one-drops in this deck hurts so much, and with stuff like Heroes that can just kill one-drops constantly, and stuff like Cavendish and like the Rebecca deck as well that just swings and kills a one-drop, it just makes it so much harder to play Law, and makes it so much harder to get to that 5-character window, that it just makes the deck even harder to play. Now, does this kill the deck? No, it's still a playable deck, it's still a decent deck, so that's why I'm putting it on B tier, but I just don't see it being one of the best decks in the game going forward. It's just very unfortunate, and as we go forward as well into like OP05, we'll even drop to like C tier at some point, which is something that I really hate to say, but probably does. But right now, I would say it's a comfortable B tier. Next, we have Whitebeard, another one of the best decks in the game. Like, this is an absolutely insane leader, a very, very strong one right now, because it's just got the 6k power and everything that makes it so much harder to kill, and it's got a lot of counter power as well, which just makes it very strong. But where do I think this leader will stand at this point? I'm gonna be honest, I think this is still a probably A tier leader. I think Whitebeard right now is still one of the best decks. If we do get the like Radical Beam and the 4-cost Marco 9-drop Whitebeard off the list, like, this deck is an easy A tier, and I think it's an A tier regardless right now. Probably the bottom of A tier, because like, it's not a bad deck, it's still really strong, but you can still get really sweet as well, thanks to a lot of other cards in the game. So Whitebeard will probably just adapt to how the format plays, and I still see it being an A tier deck. Like, 6k power is still really, really strong, and I think it will still do quite well going forward. Next, we have Red Black Garp. I'm going to be honest, it's red, so it's still pretty decent, but it's a D tier for me. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's great. I think it's just an easy D tier. I don't think we need to really say anything more. It's just a D tier deck. It doesn't need to be any higher. It doesn't need to be any lower. It is okay. Like, having the ability to decrease characters' costs and then just wipe out over Sakazuki is pretty decent, and having the ability to play rush cards with red is also pretty decent. So I'll give it a justifiable D tier. Next we have Kinemon. Kinemon, I think, is gonna be a C tier for me. Like, I don't think Kinemon's bad. I just think it's gonna be like one of those rogue choices that can come out of nowhere and kind of win. But I can't really put it higher than C tier because, let's be honest, the decks above it are just gonna be better. Doflamingo, I think, is just way better. It plays tons of blockers. It has the ability to access every good removal. And the best thing that Kinemon has is the ability to play 8-drop Odin, but it's just so easy to remove now with decks like Katakuri around, being able to just play the Katakuri character to remove it, or just play 3,000 worlds after decreasing its cost with something, or just even remove it with like a red rock. Like, there's just so many ways to deal with the deck right now that I feel like it's just a C tier deck. It's not a bad deck. I just feel like into OP04, with the amount of removal that's going to be in the game, it makes sense to be a C tier deck. It's not going to be absolutely insane. Green Blue Sanji, this is just another F tier deck, guys. Like, this could have been so good if it didn't count blockers or like double attack characters as an ability, but because it does, it's just terrible. Like, I think most restand leaders right now, or restand Don leaders, just aren't good. It's kind of sad because like these two could have been very good leaders, but it just isn't in the cards for them right now. Next we have Yellow Purple Croc. Okay, Yellow Purple Croc is another interesting one. This has a pretty cool ability as well. Whenever a Don is negged, once per turn you can get an active Don back. Now, do I think this deck is going to be absolutely insane? I think it has potential. I think it has interesting card mechanics, but I don't think the deck is actually that great. Like, having the ability to play all the yellow cards is nice, and having the ability to play the 8-drop Croc with all of the other events and stuff is very decent. But in my personal opinion, I think this is just going to be another C tier deck. Definitely above like Blurple Kaido and Isho, probably not above Kinemon, but I think it's just one of those decks that, yes, has a very cool synergy, but I just think the Blurple Kaido, the Blurple Croc is just better overall, because Blurple Croc has the ability to draw cards, it has the ability to play the blue events and all the original Baroque Works cards. Like, it just has that additional on top that I think just makes it way better. And yes, getting Don back is gonna be pretty decent, but at the same time, like, if you play stuff on like 10 Don, you losing that couple of Don ain't gonna matter because you're just gonna get that Don back. So, in my personal opinion, I think this card isn't bad. I just don't think it's amazing right now. Next, we have Ivankov. I think this is another D tier leader. It's not the worst blue leader in the game. It's not the best blue leader in the game. It's just not great. Like, honestly, the worst blue leader in the game is Sanji, and that's dual colored, but I think Ivankov is just another D tier leader that, yes, has the ability to do things and has access to the best removal in the game, but just because it has an okay ability doesn't mean it's going to be a good deck. There are better leaders in the game, and I think this is definitely better than these 5 down here, just having the ability to draw 2 at the end of the turn if you have no cards, but overall, I don't think it's really going to be good. Next, we have Magellan. Now, guys, I've got to pay some respect to Magellan. Magellan has actually been smacking the meta in the current format, even beating out some of my friends in like the recent Spain regional. And I'm going to be honest, Magellan is going to be an interesting choice. Do I think he's absolutely insane? No. Do I think he gets really powerful in OP05? Yeah, he gets a lot more powerful in OP05. But having the ability to disrupt curb, having the ability to gain power once you've disrupted curb, having the ability to just go ahead and be a purple card and access to all the good purple cards as well right now, having Hell's Judgment and stuff, makes it really good. And just, I feel like this deck isn't insane. It's not an insane deck, but I think it goes into the C tier bracket as well, just because it has its matchups. It has a lot of decent stuff. In the OP05/ST10 era, I think it could possibly move up to B, but right now I feel like it's just a C tier deck. It's got a lot of potential, but I think there are better decks out there right now. Now, next we have Zeph. Zeph, I'm going to go ahead and put to the bottom of D tier. I think he's not a terrible leader, having the ability to remove stuff at the cost of Don. That's always going to be somewhat decent, but I don't think he's a great leader because he's just missing a lot, and I feel like having access to purple and black is decent, being able to decrease characters' costs, and then go ahead and play like a good purple card to go ahead and remove them. Like, I think that's decent and all, but I don't think it's a great deck, and it kind of fits in this boat of D area where it's somewhat good, but it's really just not going to be better than this, right? Next, we have the Black Luffy. This is a F tier if I've ever seen it again. Like, this is not a good leader. This is a terrible leader. This is the worst out of the 2 structure leaders, so this goes straight into the bin. Okay, so straight into F tier. Smoker, my boy Smoker. Now, I'm gonna be honest, guys. Smoker, this leader slaps an OP04. I think this leader is going to be absolutely insane now. It's a perfect counter to a lot of those decks out there, such as even Rebecca right now, because yes, Rebecca has prevention from destruction, but this deck just kills 1-drops, and Rebecca puts 1-drops down. You can get access to the double attack Smoker, you have access into Sakazuki, you have access into all the good Navy cards. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I think Smoker is a really decent deck this format, and I'm gonna put it in B tier along with these heavy hitters as well. I think it is a very cool deck, I think it's a very good deck. Do I think it's the top tier of the meta? No, but I think it's in B tier, and you know what, I'm gonna place it above Trafalgar Law. I can't say it's not better than Trafalgar Law. It smacks Trafalgar Law too. So I'm going to put it in B tier above Trafalgar Law because that's what I believe. I believe this deck is just better than Trafalgar Law right now. Now we go on to Ace Leader. Now, Ace is actually another interesting deck where it just has one of those interesting leader abilities, and it's got all the Whitebeard cards, which just make it pretty decent. Like, having the ability to use all the Whitebeard cards without restriction, having the ability to just be a red deck on top of that, always made it really decent. But I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this is gonna be absolutely insane. Like, as I said, red gets flipped this format, and I think Fortress D Ace gonna be a bottom or C tier. Yeah, actually, you know what? It's gonna be higher than these, but I just don't see it being higher than Kinemon, in all honesty. I think this deck is decent. Yes, I think it's gonna be a decent deck, but in my opinion, I think he's C tier, and seeing as red just gets hit hard this format, I think it just goes down. I don't think it's going to be insane. I think it's going to be quite weak. So, yeah, we're going to call it a C tier. Next, we have Kuro. Kuro is a D tier for me. Guys, I'm going to be honest, when it comes to something like Kuro, I think he's got an interesting ability and all, and he's probably the top of D tier for me. Like, I'm not going to lie, D tier top for me makes sense, but I feel like his biggest weakness is obviously the fact that Leader Kid exists. Like, Leader Kid is just better. Having the ability to just discard a card instead of resting 2 attack characters, 2 characters that can swing, to be able to swing again, and yes, resting a blocker is kind of worth it at times, but they're just going to use that blocker first most of the time, so it doesn't matter. So, in my personal opinion, I think he is a cool leader, I think he's an interesting leader, but I don't put him above D tier. He's not above D tier in my mind, so we put him in D. Next, we have Arlong, yellow-green Arlong. Now, this is an interesting one. This one is essentially the Dofi trigger. Like, this plays cards from hand that have trigger, not from top of deck. Now, Arlong is just one of those interesting decks that could potentially be good, but sadly gets weakened by the fact that it's restricted to hand. The reason why Doflamingo is good is because Doflamingo can go ahead and play them from the deck. This has to have them in hand. So, what's my thoughts on this deck? What's my thought on Arlong? I think he's another D tier leader. I think he is decent. I don't think he is terrible. I think he has the potential to be really good, but overall, guys, I think he's just another D tier. I don't think he's insane. I think he has the potential to do decent things, like Kuro, for instance, but I just think he's just like bottom of the barrel. If you want to play him, but I don't think you're going to do really great in the metagame with him. Next, we have Nami, the Nami leader. Now, I'm going to be honest, guys. Nami actually gets a lot better this format. Nami has the ability to use the worst searcher in the game, Arpiece, which can discard 2 cards from your hand to search an East Blue card. Now, in my mind, that's awful, but the sim says otherwise. We're going into a format where the game becomes way more grindy, thanks to stuff like Rebecca and Vivi existing, because you don't have to swing right away, you can go ahead and grind the game a bit, and because of that, I think Nami is going to get way better. Every time I play Nami on the sim against Rebecca, I win, or if I play Rebecca and I'm against Nami, I lose. Like, Nami is the ultimate Rebecca killer in my opinion. Just having the ability to go ahead and draw your entire deck, win the game by default is great, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm saying it's a bottom of the B tier, boys. I think Nami is bottom of B tier. She's a deck out deck. Do I think she's insane? No, she's basically able to just win very easily against Rebecca and other decks as well. If you play your cards right, it can actually beat a lot of these decks on the list if you play correctly. But Guys, I think she's going to be really strong just because of Rebecca exists in the format, so she is a B tier. Next, we have Iceberg. He is going to be a D tier leader. Sadly, he just kind of drops down the list a lot. Like, we've got better non-attacking leaders now, and yes, he's still somewhat decent in the game, but he's just not good enough, right? Like, the deck isn't good enough. Its support is like a blocker Iceberg as well, which isn't terrible, but I don't think this deck will be better than D tier going forward, right? So continuing on though, we have Rob Lucci. Rob Lucci falls from the B tier slot to the C tier slot, and above Ace in my opinion as well. Like, Rob Lucci is just a black leader that can swing twice by trashing 2. He's a decent leader, he's a cool leader, but the game is shifting, and because of that, a lot of cards are going to be harder to KO thanks to stuff like the Sabo blocker existing, and also Rebecca just having Kyros that can't be KO'd. So in my opinion, it's still decent, could still potentially win, but I don't think he's higher than C tier, and it's probably actually higher than Kanemon now that I think about it, because he's just that kind of deck, right? Like, it's not a bad deck, and with the blue removal in the game as well, black decks do get a lot weaker. I think Smoker is just better because of the fact that 1 costs are in the Rebecca deck, and in 1 cost you'll be able to just sweep your opponent thanks to that. But Rob Lucci is one of those cards that needs to KO, and because it's a lot harder to KO things in this next upcoming format, I think Rob Lucci just kind of falls down the pipeline. Next, we have Big Mom. Black, yellow, Big Mom. Gonna be honest, I think she's another D tier. I think she was very interesting in OP04. She didn't really do much, but let's be honest guys, it's not insane. She loses a lot of her power going forward, and there's just a better leader to play now, which we'll get to in a minute, which is the Queen leader. And in all honesty, she had her time. She didn't get really used much, so I think she goes down to D tier. I don't think she's dead, but I don't think she's powerful either. Continue on, we have Katakuri. Now, I'm going to be honest, guys. Katakuri leader, I'm not going to lie, I think it's a straight S tier. I cannot deny the power of Katakuri. Guys, with the additions that we get in OP04 for Katakuri, I think this is an easy S tier choice. Like, having the ability to swing for 7 every turn is always really, really strong, but also having access into the new yellow cards, such as the Trigger Blocker Sanji, the new 2k counters with Capone Beige preventing attacks, the one that can rest 2 or less blockers, the new Big Mom cards overall, the new 9-drop Yamato to go ahead and gain a life if you have 1 or less and just kill characters. Like, this deck gets so much boost going into OP04 that it's an S tier, guys. I think this deck is going to be absolutely insane. I think this deck is going to smack so many different things. So I'm going to put it on S tier. I'm faithful to this decision, and I really think Katakuri is going to be one of the best decks in the game. So yeah, Katakuri, S tier. I'm 100% just certain of this, guys. I think it's just going to be a really powerful deck going forward. So yeah, Katakuri in S tier. Next, we have Green Purple Doflamingo. Now, Green Purple Doflamingo at first, when I first saw this leader, I thought it was trash. I thought this deck was not going to be good. I thought it was going to do nothing. I thought it was just going to be one of those cool gimmicky decks that at the end of the turn restands Don. Like, looking at the ones like Sanji and Odin. But literally, this leader is scary, man. This leader is A tier, guys. This leader, my guys, like, having the ability to just play all the purple and green film stuff together is insane. 7-drop blocker Luffy, purple Uta blocker, can rest 2 characters, having access into the ability to play all of the 2-cost events because you're restanding your Don at the end of the turn for absolutely free. Having access into the new restand 2-Don card that can go ahead as Spiderweb, that can just go ahead and block with your blocker Luffy, and then restand instantly, blocking with 11. Like, guys, I'm gonna be honest, I think this deck is absolutely insane going forward. Like, this deck is going to be very strong. It has access to some insane cards, such as the 2-drop Sugar, that says whenever your opponent plays a character, you can go ahead and rest a character they control, any cost I might add, and on play just go ahead and rest at 4 cost or less. Like, I think this deck is going to be so strong. It has access to some of the best events in the game, such as Punk Gibson, Spidernet, Hell's Judgment. It gets access into the new 10-drop Doflamingo, guys. They can go ahead and freeze any rested characters and leader as well. Like, I personally think, guys, going forward, Purple Green Film Doflamingo, one of the best decks in the game. I generally feel like this deck is going to be absolutely insane, very powerful, and I'm going to be honest, it's above Whitebeard. I think this deck is going to be easily above Whitebeard. This deck is so nice, so strong, and I really do believe, guys, this deck's going to be good. But continuing on, guys, we have the Uta leader. Let's be honest, this is another F tier. This is just not the one, guys. It's not worth the effort. Next though, we have Blue Yellow Queen. Blue Yellow Queen. So this is actually an interesting leader as well. This is the one that kind of takes out the Big Mom leader. Like, this one said you have 4 cards in your hand or 4 life, basically equal to your life. So if you have 2 cards in hand, 2 cards in life, you can draw 1 card if this has a dot on it. But if you control an 8 cost or higher character, you can go ahead and gain a life instead. So essentially what this leader is, in the grind game, you're constantly gaining life or you're constantly drawing cards, which is just really good, right? Having the ability to gain life is already really strong, but on top of that, this is blue-yellow. This gets access into all of the good high-costing yellow and blue cards. It gets access to the 9-drop Mihawk, the new 9-drop Yamato. It gets access to play 8-drop Katakuri. It gets access to the new 10-drop Kaido that can return an 8 and a 3 cost to the hand at the same time simultaneously. This deck actually gets a lot of power and is going to be really strong going forward into the game, and has access into the best removal as well, such as 3000 Worlds and Red Rock. So where do I think this deck is going to be? What do I think this deck is going to do? Boys, I think this is going to be a B tier deck. I think this is easily a B tier deck. I don't think it's super powerful because, yeah, it's strong, but it has its faults as well at the same time, where you got to wait later on in the game, which kind of weakens the power of the deck in my personal opinion. But nonetheless, it is still a very strong deck, a very decent deck, and I think will be pretty good going forward. Now, next, the leader that everybody is anticipating to be good, Rebecca. S tier, boys. S tier. Like, if you're playing Rebecca correctly, you are going to smack your opponent. If you know what you're doing, if you know how to play the deck, you are going to overturn every single deck you play against. Having access into the best removal from black and blue, being able to KO any character 6 or less, being able to KO or put to the bottom any character in the game with Red Rock or 3000 Worlds, having the ability to access Olympus or heroes to go ahead and just literally kill 1-drops easily or decrease characters by 4 cost with the Olympus, like, is absolutely insane, and also has the additional bonus of the ability to rest 1 Don to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and add a Dressrosa card from them to your hand. This deck overturns the entire format. It changes the entire game, putting red in its place with being able to kill tons of 1-drops. This deck is consistent. This deck has the ability to rush with its stage, the Colosseum. This deck has Gear 4th, Monkey D. Leafy, being able to swing for 7k twice, almost every turn. Like, this deck is just great, it's powerful, and has a lot of removal. So personally, I think it's just really insane. It does have the downfall of obviously being a deck that can't attack with its leader, but the characters in it more than make up for it, and the removal you can access makes more sense as well. So I think this deck is just absolutely insane and is definitely an S tier. It's weaker than Katakuri in my opinion, but it's definitely a very strong deck going forward. Next, we have Red-Green Luffy. I'm going to put this in D tier. Like, let's be honest, it's not a good leader. It's not a great leader. It's never been that great leader. I don't think it's F tier because it is still playable with all the Supernova stuff. But I don't think it's going to be going anywhere continuing forward, guys. I think it's just not that great leader outside of that. Next, we have the Red Luffy. Now, Red Luffy was doing a lot in the last format, being able to be a deck that could just go ahead and get an extra Don each turn, be able to play for a lot of different things. Like, it had ability and potential, but I personally think with the changing of the format, this deck's just going to kind of go down as well, because all the red stuff does kind of get weak. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in a sensible C tier. Like, it's still decent. I think it's probably above Ace in that scenario, but I don't think it's super high in comparison. I think it just stays in the C tier area for me. Next, we have Green Kid. I'm going to be honest, I think this goes into C tier as well. I think he goes probably above the Ace 2. Like, Film Kid is still going to be a decent deck, like, don't get me wrong, like, it's still able to do a lot. It topped a regional recently as well, showing that it's still a deck that has potential, has the capability to play, and I personally feel like it's just a way better Kuro, just because the fact that you can discard a character to go ahead and swing again. Like, free Don to restand for, like, an additional 12k swing, like, that's always going to be decent in my mind. Like, it's just a decent leader overall. And yes, Doflamingo overpowers it a lot, but it's still a very decent leader. So I think C tier is a sensible place to put it. Next, we have Blue Croc. I actually think Blue Croc goes into the B tier. This is because this is just a very decent anti-meta leader. Like, it's got the ability to just go ahead and return characters to the hand for absolutely nothing, basically. Just returning 4 Don, and then when you're on 10 and have played like a 10 director, like, it's just going to be a really, really strong leader, and has the ability to get rid of blockers. It has the ability to use all of the good removal in the game, and it has good removal in itself as well, which just gives it bonuses, right? So I think it's a decent B tier leader. I think it's the bottom of B. Don't think it's higher, but it's still going to be a pretty decent leader going forward. But Kaido, let's be honest, guys, this is another D tier leader, sadly. Like, Kaido right now is just not good. He's definitely higher than these. I'll put him higher than Big Mom, but I don't think he's going to be great going forward. I feel like until we get to ST10 and we get the new purple cards, he's just going to be a D tier leader, so I'm going to put him in a sensible D tier. Next, we have the Big Mom leader. This actually did some stuff during OP03's format, but in my opinion, I don't think it's still going to continue doing things, guys. I don't think it's a good leader. I don't think it's a great leader right now. Like, if it does stuff going forward, sure, that's nice, but I think this is another respectable D tier. I think it's probably the top of D tier just because it does have the ability to be decent, but I just don't think it's higher than D tier. I think there's a lot better leaders out there, like all of these, so I think D tier is a fair area. Yellow Yamato, actually, this is actually another decent contender in the game. I think this is a deck that does have potential, just having the ability to be a 6k leader during the opponent's turn, which is actually pretty good. Having that ability to counter easier is always going to be nice. So I think I'll put this in a sensible... I'll put this in a sensible C tier. I'll put it at the top of C tier as well, just because of the yellow color does get stronger. Like, I think C tier, top of C tier, is fair enough. I think it's a very decent place to be. So, yep, top of C tier. Red, Blue, Vivi. This is a D tier. Don't get me wrong, guys. I love this leader. I love trolling with this leader on the sim so much. But overall, guys, this is not a good deck. Like, yes, being able to give characters rush and draw a card every turn is good, and you can play stuff like the blue Luffy to return blockers and stuff, but overall, she's just not good. She doesn't do a lot. She doesn't have the ability to do a lot. She can play big characters and swing for big damage a lot of the time, but let's be honest, guys, she just doesn't have that ability to be very good. So I'm gonna be honest, I'll put her just below Kaido because she is decent and has the ability to play to decent extents, but I just don't think she's an absolutely insane leader. Now, guys, the last leader that we need to talk about on this list, what is the best last leader? What is the leader that everybody is wondering isn't on the list yet? It's Roa Noa Zoro. Now, guys, Roa Noa Zoro has been the best deck this entire format. People say it's Whitebeard. People sometimes say it's Law. But Zoro is definitively the best deck just because of how much it wins overall. There are so many of them. They are all very okay, guys. Like, this is the easiest deck to play in the game. And the thing is, finally, guys, finally, this deck is going to be weakened. This deck was S tier. Then it could move to A tier because of Whitebeard. Now, I'm gonna put this in B tier. Yes, guys, I know you guys are probably saying, B tier? Why does it go in B tier? Like, what are you on? How does it go in B tier? I don't understand. But, guys, listen. Listen to me, okay? Zoro is a 1-cost deck. Zoro plays cards that, when KO'd, play them back. Zoro loses to Rebecca. Zoro loses 2 tons of blockers. Zoro loses 2 Katakuri. This deck is getting weakened hard in this format. This deck is going to be entirely different. It's not going to be the best deck anymore. Like, seriously, this deck gets weakened by all extent. The only reason Whitebeard is still in A tier on this list, in my opinion, is because it doesn't play tons of 1-drops and can easily go ahead and just be a 6k leader that can deal with the opponent. But Zoro's going to be dealing with 1-cost killers. Zoro's going to be dealing with the ability to remove Marcos at any point. Zoro's going to be dealing with so many issues that, in all honesty, guys, Zoro is just going to be weakened. Now, don't get me wrong. He's still going to be a decent leader. He's still going to be good in the game. That's why he goes into B tier. But, guys, he is not going to be as powerful as the rest. He is not going to be as strong as he once was. He is going to be severely weakened. Because honestly, guys, people are going to be playing more high-costing characters, more power characters. That just makes it that Zoro just gets weakened. Like, against Film Dofi, they could 3000 Worlds, sure, but, well, sorry, not 3000 Worlds, they could Fire Fist, sure, but they're not going to have the ability to go ahead and get over a lot of the other things. Sure, they could go ahead and swing for big damage a lot of the time, but the amount of blockers that stuff like Rebecca's going to play, Film Dofi's going to play, Katakuri's now going to play, is just going to be very hard for them to deal with. So, in my personal opinion, Zoro, still a decent deck. Still a deck that is absolutely playable in the game. Is it the best deck though? Not anymore. Red is getting severely weakened this format thanks to literally Rebecca's existence, and it's gonna make it very hard to play red 1-drop decks. It's gonna make it hard to play Law. It's gonna make it harder to play Whitebeard, definitely. I still think he's gonna be a very strong leader, but it's gonna be very hard to play. And yeah, guys, this is my tier list. This is the list of cards that I think are just going to be great. This is what I think is going to be good, strong decks to play. Like, in my personal opinion, like, a lot of these could probably be shifted around to an extent, like when you look at the list, but at the end, this is what I have done. This is where I have put decks. I think all of these have a very strong chance of being good, and a lot of these have a chance of winning events or topping events. But going forward, we're seeing a massive shift where red is going to be taking an L going forward, guys, and we're going to see Katakuri and Rebecca and Film Dofi probably as well be just very dominant decks alongside like Whitebeard as well. So guys, tell me what your thoughts are on my list in the comment section below. Tell me your thoughts on my opinions going into this list and what I have said throughout the video. I hope you did enjoy the tier list video, and well, leave a like and subscribe for more One Piece content, and I will see you guys in the next one. Absolute Duelist signing out. Later all.